The PlayStation 5, a console that I have absolutely zero attachment to. Yeah, as a Nintendo guy who still has all these games to play, I've made the wise financial decision to not pick up this console. However, even if I don't care about the console now, I was happy when in June 2020 the console was revealed to the world and all the games planned for release were showcased. And with the reveal happening over 3.5 years ago now, I thought it'd be fun to look back at the games revealed and see which ones lived up to the hype, which ones flopped, and answer the most important question: does PS5 still have no games? Before getting into the games, obligatory beg to like and subscribe. Okay, you're still there? Cool, let's start. Now, the first game to kick off this new era of the PlayStation was a totally new experience in GTA 5. Yeah, the game that would never die was the first game shown off for the console, and people were not fully enthused to say the least. It only made sense, one of the best-selling games of all time would make its way to the PS5, but yeah, I totally get why people were pissed. The game originally came on the PS3 and there was still no news of a new entry in sight. The hate was understandable. The first actual new game shown off for the console was the Spider-Man spin-off sequel, Miles Morales. With Miles now serving as the protagonist, the game would be one of the launch tests for the system in November 2020. It ended up being another solid entry in the Spider-Man series, earning good scores from both users and critics, Game Award nominations, and selling over 6 million copies across both the PS4 and PS5 as of July 2021. Overall, GameSpot described the game best.
Is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
Next, to really show off the graphical capabilities of the new PlayStation console was Gran Turismo 7. While I had little interest in a realistic racer, the game looked stunning and helped showcase what the console could be capable of visually. The game would release in March 2022 and sell an estimated 5 to 6 million copies by November of that year, eventually taking home Best Sports Racing Game at the Game Awards. Keeping with the PlayStation properties, the newest entry in the Ratchet & Clank franchise, Rift Apart, was shown off. Showcasing a long-running duo hopping across different dimensions, the game showcased how the SSD could be used to reduce or completely eliminate load times for games, while also showing off a colorful world and flashy combat. A female version of Ratchet named Rivet was also shown off, and, well, let's just say some people really took a liking to the character. The game would come out in June 2021 and sell over 1 million copies by the next month, and eventually earn 6 Game Award nominations, including Game of the Year nom. Next was a game from Square Enix that would garner a positive impression upon its reveal, simply known as Project Thea. While we didn't get too much info about the game, it showed a girl in a rundown fantasy world using elemental powers to defeat monsters while looking very impressive visually. Now, I thought this trailer looked good upon its initial release, but my one main problem with it was, what did the character sound like?
Did I just do that?
Well, definitely with my assistance.
I did not just do that.
We did.
I just moved shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
I just moved shit with my mind.
Ah, shit. Project Thea would turn into the quite infamous Forspoken, which released earlier this year. The game would be panned for its combat, dialogue, and story, with one line in particular getting memed a lot, while the PC port got even heavier scrutiny for the specs needed while still having performance issues. The game did not do well with all the negative press, with developers Luminous Productions being merged internally shortly after the game's release. Stray was a game with a simple gimmick attached. You played as a cat, and by God did that gimmick work. Playing as a stray cat in a robotic apocalyptic world trying to get back home, you'd interact with robots along the way and try to escape others that try and kill you. Stray would come to PS5 and PC in July 2022 and was an instant success for indie developers Blue 12 Studio, selling them millions and also gaining a strong critical reception for its world, graphics, and environmental storytelling. The game would end up with 6 Game Awards nominations, including Game of the Year nom, while also winning Best Debut Indie and Best Indie Game respectively. Launching as a PS5 exclusive and later coming to PC, Returnal was a roguelike third-person shooter where you play as an astronaut trapped in a time loop on a distant planet. Reaching over 500,000 sales in its first few months, Returnal would garner praise for its visual and combat, eventually earning 3 Game Award nominations in 2021, including a win for Best Action Game. Another game that ended up being a launch title, Sackboy: A Big Adventure saw the return of the Little Big Planet mascot in a 3D platformer, differing from its typical 2.5D outings. The change to being a 3D platformer saw it gain comparisons to Mario 3D World, while the other major change saw the game get rid of the content creation aspect, a core component of the Little Big Planet games. Despite all the changes made, the title was still met with a positive reception. Destruction AllStars was an online vehicular combat game where the player tries to eject other drives from the vehicles and collide with them. The game would set a precedent as one of the first AAA games to charge $69.99 instead of $59.99 and released in February 2021 after initially being planned as a launch title. Destruction AllStars ended up underwhelming, being hit with mixed reviews and only able to keep a low player count throughout its run. From all the games announced, the one that caught my attention the most was Kena: Bridge of Spirits. It looked absolutely gorgeous, like a Pixar movie translated to a game seamlessly, while also featuring these cute and fuzzy knockoff Pikmin things called Rod. The game would eventually come out in September 2021, garnering praise for its artistic design and music, and reportedly broke even within its first month. It ended up with 3 Game Award nominations, winning both Best Debut Indie and Best Indie Game. Out of all the games announced at the reveal, none quite gained a level of infamy as good by Volcano High. A narrative adventure game, the game sees you play as a world of anthropomorphic dinosaurs in a high school have to deal with the graduation and impending doom from an asteroid. Now, I've never used the website Tumblr, but if I were to try and give an example of my perception of Tumblr core, this would fit the bill. After failing the eye test for many, the game would gain even more controversy after it was revealed Kate Gray was the writer who had written a controversial article on Kotaku, to put it mildly, leading to further discourse. The game was initially planned for 2021, however the game was delayed and eventually released on PlayStation and PC a couple months prior to me writing this. After all the controversy, the game ended up with good scores from critics and players, ultimately being a game you will know if it's up your alley or not. Acting as a reimagining of a PS1 classic, Oddworld Soulstorm acted as a sequel to new and tasty and an updated version of 1998 Abe's Exodus. Starring Abe, a Madokan trying to save members of his tribe from the Gluckons brutally exploiting them, the platform ended up coming out to PlayStation and PC while eventually coming to Xbox and Nintendo consoles later on. However, the latest entry in the cult classic franchise disappointed, earning mixed thoughts from both critics and fans of the series, seeing it as much weaker than its predecessors. Ghostwire Tokyo is a game that can simply be described by its E3 reveal.
It's spooky.
In all seriousness, Ghostwire Tokyo was a first-person action game where the player uses paranormal and psychic abilities to fight off spirits called visitors. The game received generally good reviews from critics and higher praise from players, with the main complaint being the different aspects such as the combat and visitors you fight being unable to reach their full potential. As of September of this year, the game has been reached by 6 million players. Gonna be honest, this is the only game I have no recollection of being announced. Developed by Super Brothers, Jett the Forest Ranger sees you play as May, a jet scout who explores an ocean planet to examine the wildlife and trace the source of a mysterious signal. After initially being planned for a 2020 release, the game was delayed and came out in October 2021, releasing to a mixed reception from both critics and gamers. One of the bigger titles shown off, Godfall is an action RPG published by Gearbox. A self-described looter slasher, the player sees himself as one of the last exalted Knights Order trying to prevent an apocalyptic event. Upon its release in November 2020, Godfall was met with poor to mixed reviews, disappointing on release and failing to gain momentum afterwards. From the creators of Hyper Light Drifter, Solar Ash was another game that caught my eye during the presentation. Playing as Ray, the player ventures through a black hole known as the Ultra Void and traverses a colorful world platform across the land in order to try and save your home planet. The game acted as a departure from the previous title, focusing more on platforming as well as a clear change in the art style and direction. The game released in December 2021, the positive reception, specifically the world and atmosphere, getting the most praise, but was criticized for its story and combat. As the newest entry in the long-running stealth franchise, Hitman 3 was shown off as a sequel to 2018's Hitman 2. Similar to its predecessor, Hitman 2 sees Agent 47 enter different sandbox maps trying to find ways to successfully kill targets without getting caught in as many ways possible. The game received strong praise from critics and fans upon its release in January 2021, going on to be the most successful entry in the entire franchise. Serving in a way as this console's Wii Sports, Astro Playroom was pre-installed on every PS5 console. Acting as a sequel to Astrobot Rescue Mission on PS4, Playroom sees the player control an Astrobot with the DualSense controller, navigating around the fictionalized internals of the console while showing off the capabilities of the new controller. The game was met with praise and helped show what the PS5 could be capable of if developed for optimally, while also celebrating the brand's legacy with cameos from different franchises like Uncharted and Crash Bandicoot. Little Devil Inside is one of the most interesting games shown off, as it's still not out and we don't really know when it will be. Originally being funded as the Kickstarter in 2015, the status of the game remained in limbo before reappearing at the reveal event in 2020. The game would receive a later feature showcase at a future state of play, showcasing more of the gameplay and the world map. A planned release date of 2022 was shown, however that has passed with no game in sight. With 2024 fast approaching, the actual status of the game remains under tight wraps, making someone wonder if it will find a release next year, and, more importantly, if the Wii U version promised in the Kickstarter will also come out. NBA 2K21 was shown. It's basketball. Out of all the games announced, I think the one that caught people off guard the most would be Bugsnax. From the developers that created Octodad, Bugsnax sees you land on an island as a journalist, exploring the land and the animal food hybrids that occupy it, trying to solve the true mystery of the island while interacting with different inhabitants and solving their problems. Despite some being turned off by the absurdity of the trailer, the game was a launch title for the new console and went on to be a success, garnering positive reviews and going on to outsell developer Young Horse's previous title. Praise be Bunger. Now, here come the big hitters to end the presentation. One of the most influential games of the past 2 decades and starting the Souls genre, a remake of Demon's Souls was shown off. While just being a CGI trailer, by the time the actual game came out it would be just as gorgeous visually. Upon its release at the PS5's launch, it was met with universal acclaim, featuring the same difficulty that the series was known for in providing quality of life improvements to exceed the original game on PS3. Deathloop was the second time loop game shown off, developed by Arcane and published by Bethesda. Playing as an assassin, you must kill all 8 targets before midnight in order to skip the loop while also being hunted down yourself. Releasing on PS5 and PC in September 2021, the game received critical acclaim, earning 2 Game Award wins from its 9 nominations, including a Game of the Year nomination. However, outside the critics circle, it received less praise, with some specific scrutiny against the game's performance on PC. The release on PlayStation was also interesting, as by release, Bethesda was purchased by Microsoft, making it a Microsoft PS5 exclusive before coming to Xbox a year later, similar to what would happen with the previously mentioned Ghostwire Tokyo. Resident Evil 8 saw the latest entry in a long-running horror franchise, with much hype surrounding it after the success of previous entry Resident Evil 7. Ethan Winters returned as the protagonist from RE7, having to traverse a village infested by werewolf-like mutants and attempt to rescue his kidnapped daughter. Also, this really tall lady was shown off, but I'm sure she won't have much impact on the internet. The game released in May 2021 with strong reviews, however it changed it being more action-oriented than the previous entry divided some. It went on to get 5 Game Award nominations, with Maggie Robertson winning Best Performance for her role as Lady Dimitrescu. Ragman is the second game to be shown off that still hasn't come out, however we've gotten more recent updates on it. The initial trailer shows an astronaut going around a destroyed city, finding a little girl, and then shit hits the fan. We've got bits and pieces over the years, however the game has been delayed multiple times, most recently at this year's Capcom Showcase where the girl apologizes for the game being delayed until further notice. However, a bit of gameplay was shown, so hopefully it will come out in the near future. Finally, the big PlayStation IP to be the last game announced, Horizon 2 Forbidden West was shown off acting as a sequel to 2017 Zero Dawn. A third-person open-world action RPG, the game teaches you to play as Aloy again and explore a new mysterious frontier known as the Forbidden West. The game boasts of having a larger map, new underwater section, and improved combat. The game came out February 18th, 2022 to strong reviews just like its predecessor and ended up with 7 Game Award nominations. By April of the next year, the game had sold for 8.4 million units, however much of the discourse of the game was overshadowed by Elden Ring, which released 1 week after it. And there we have it, those were all the games announced at the PS5 reveal. Now to answer the important question, does the PS5 still have no games? Well, I'd say in spur the ones that still have not been released, yes the PS5 has games. From this presentation alone there are hundreds of hours of games to play, and there are all the games released afterwards that weren't shown here like God of War 2. If you look hard enough and try new things, there'll be plenty of stuff to play. With all that said though, thanks for watching and Ptok out.